Hello, everyone. Welcome back to The Art of Being a Woman. I'm your host, Courtney, and today we are discussing the art of moving through discomfort. Discomfort is inevitable. It is something that each and every one of us experience in life multiple times. And it's never a coincidence. It's always intentional and it's always for our greatest good, even though it doesn't always feel like that in the moment. I'm going to share 4 different steps that can really help you change your perspective on discomfort and how to look at it when it does show up in your life, so that when you're in the heat of the moment and you feel uncomfortable, you have the mental tools to really push through and come out winning on the other side. The 4 steps that we're going to get into are from my Instagram account, She is Artfully Woman, where I discuss a lot of the topics that we speak about here on the podcast in a written format. So if that is something that you're interested in, I would love to have you on Instagram as well. The 4 steps are as follows. We have 1, discomfort is a personal warning. 2, sit with discomfort to move through it. 3, avoiding discomfort creates more of it. And 4, discomfort ends when it becomes gratitude. Let's start with step 1. Discomfort is a personal warning. When I think about my life and the moments when I've experienced discomfort, it was always because I was in a point in my life where I knew I had outgrown my environment. I outgrew my habits, and I knew that something had to change and something had to give, but I wasn't sure what that change would look like and if it was possible. So I would sort of have this knowing that something is not right anymore, but I would try my best to avoid it and not think too much about it. And I really believed that if I distracted myself with other priorities and things that did make me comfortable, the discomfort would sort of disappear. And this really can apply to anything in our lives. This can be our relationships, it can be our career, it can be our lifestyle, anything. But the discomfort that we feel in any of these areas of life are never random. If we feel discomfort in a relationship, it's because of how we feel within it. And perhaps we've outgrown the dynamic, or perhaps we are suppressing a part of ourselves within that relationship. And the same thing can go for our lifestyle. If we feel on a day-to-day basis that we are not happy and we don't feel content with how our day is playing out, then perhaps it's because we need to change our routine. Perhaps we need to add more of the things that we love on a daily basis and less of the things that we feel obligated to do, and the things that do not bring us a long-lasting fulfillment. I never really looked at discomfort as a personal warning in my life, not up until recently, when I realized that whenever I took the discomfort in my life seriously and I saw it as a messenger rather than a force that is trying to irritate me or bother me, I realized that it was almost like an alarm system. It was a reminder that I've always wanted more and better for myself, and I never wanted to really stay stuck in one place my whole life. Because if we never allow ourselves to look at our lives objectively and ask ourselves if we're content with where we are, or if we would like to grow and experience more and do more and be more, then time is just going to pass us by. We will look back at our lives and realize that we didn't live it to its fullest, and there was so much that we wanted to do and we avoided it out of fear of discomfort. And that is something that I wouldn't wish on anyone, to be honest. For a long time in my teenage years and in my young adult years, I definitely believed that avoiding discomfort was good, and that whenever I felt discomfort, it was because something was wrong. But the truth is, it's not wrong. It's a nudge to change. It's a nudge to move on from where we are in life. And many times we can really stay stuck in certain situations in our life if we don't get that nudge, if we don't feel that discomfort. And so that is the beauty of discomfort. It really pushes us in the right direction that we wouldn't really have realized we should be doing on our own. The truth is, with discomfort, the longer we avoid it and the longer it takes for us to admit that we're actually experiencing this discomfort in our life, the louder it will get and the more it will turn into actual chaos in our lives. So it's better to really listen to yourself when you're feeling these emotions deep down before it surfaces and you don't have a choice anymore, but to deal with the repercussions of it in your physical reality. A tip for this step, and something that I do personally when I'm experiencing discomfort, is I journal. And I've spoken about journaling quite a few times, and I will always recommend it to anyone and everyone. I don't really care whether or not it is something that comes to you naturally or not. I feel like it doesn't come naturally to anyone in the beginning. It's a bit strange to want to write to yourself and talk to yourself because you're not getting that feedback from anyone. I also know that ChatGPT is amazing now, and everyone is talking to ChatGPT for advice, myself included, but there's really something powerful and special about journaling with yourself. Personally, I journal on my phone. I have an app. It's called the Day One app, and you can set a passcode, you can add photos to it, audios, whatever you want, locations, and I just free write. Many times I will write how my day is going so far, and then as I write about what's going on in my day, emotions will start to surface based on what I'm writing about. So if I was running late to an appointment, I would express that I was anxious and I was overwhelmed, and then I would realize that the only one making me anxious is me. And that's just an example. But again, if you're noticing that you're feeling this sense of discomfort and this anxiety and this stress about a certain part of your day or a certain area of your life, just write about it. And you don't have to follow any prompts. Just talk about how you're feeling until you have nothing else left to say. Pretend that you're going to write all of this to your friend and send it to them in a message, but don't actually do that. Connect with yourself and be real and be very honest with yourself so that you can really get to the root of your discomfort. Step 2, we have sit with discomfort to move through it. Now, if you take my advice from step 1 and you journal about the discomfort that you're feeling in your life, that's great. I'm proud of you. Now, the hardest part, in my opinion, is to sit with it. Don't try to change anything right away. Don't even try to intellectualize your emotions. I know not everyone does that, but that is something I've realized I tend to do when I'm experiencing a difficult emotion. I will try to convince myself to feel certain ways about a situation instead of just allowing myself to feel however I want to feel. If I'm upset, that I'm uncomfortable, if I'm sad, angry, stressed, anxious, then so be it. We're allowed to feel all these feelings, and we should feel all these feelings, because the sooner we feel our feelings, the sooner they pass. Emotions are like weather. And so if we're going to keep trying to suppress our emotions, discomfort included, it's not going to prevent them from existing. It's just going to delay it. And when we do get to a point where we have no choice but to face our discomfort and our emotions, it's going to be more overwhelming because we've allowed it to bottle up for so long. And so this is why sitting with your discomfort is so important. It gives you complete control. Discomfort can't be bypassed intellectually. There is no way to think yourself out of discomfort. You can try. I know I have tried, but that's not how emotions work. Emotions are about feelings. And so feelings and thoughts are separate energies. Feelings live in our physical body and thoughts exist in our mind. So when we try to neglect one at the expense of the other, it creates confusion and chaos internally. We never want to convince ourselves that thinking through the discomfort will actually change our feelings on it. It's very normal when we experience discomfort to run away from it. And the running away from it can really make perfect sense because we all have lives to live. We all have responsibilities. We all have priorities. And perhaps this discomfort is not one of those top priorities. Or maybe it is. But either way, it's just one of many. So it's natural for us to want to leave the discomfort for when we actually have the time and the space to really deal with it and sit with it. But the truth is, we really need to treat discomfort like a wound. Think about if you get a cut or a scrape on your body and you don't take care of it, you don't even disinfect it, nothing, you just leave it alone and you never touch it, that is only creating an opportunity for infection to be created. And so the quicker that you take care of the wound, the quicker it will heal. And it's the same thing with discomfort. Technically, we could run away from discomfort, but it would only be making it more difficult for us. So it's really not worth it. The truth is, there is always a lesson in the discomfort that we are facing. And in life, there are two ways to learn lessons. One is proactively, we seek them out. We decide to self-reflect and think about the ways we want to change and grow and become better people and just more self-aware people. And then there's lessons that we learn through pain, not because the universe and God want us to feel pain, but because sometimes we're unaware of the hurt we're causing ourselves. We can think that we're not causing ourselves any harm, we're just avoiding instant pain and short-term discomfort, but when we take those shortcuts to avoid learning real life lessons, it leads to long-term discomfort and long-term pain. So what happens is life will give us this discomfort to almost push us in the right direction to avoid that long-term suffering. But again, we all have free will and we have free choice. Life will not force us to act on the discomfort, but it will slowly but surely make it more and more annoying and unbearable to live with. The longer we minimize it or convince ourselves that it's not as serious as it feels, the more life will repeat the same test. Maybe not in that exact scenario, but it will definitely cause the same feelings to resurface. A quick example of this that I know I've experienced in my life is that I had a fear of public speaking since I was really young, and I would be in school plays and it really wouldn't have to be a big solo role or anything like that. But for some reason, I would get so nervous and convince myself that all my fears would come true during public speaking. And instead of me facing the discomfort and sitting with it, it ended up following me through my adult years. It wasn't until college, where I didn't have a choice but to present publicly multiple times by myself, that I had no choice but to sit with the discomfort and face it. Now, it was really hard for me to do that because I was facing fears that grew over the past 15 years, rather than had I faced my fears when I was young and did it anyways, it wouldn't have been so hard for me to speak publicly as an adult. And I don't blame my little self, and everything happens for a reason. I'm just explaining that we always have a choice. We can choose to acknowledge our discomfort, sit with it, face it, and appreciate the lesson that it's trying to teach us. Or we can delay that whole process, but it will still have to be dealt with at a certain point in time. It will just be a lot more painful the longer you wait. A tip for this step I recommend is to meditate. Sometimes we can experience discomfort and it is so uncomfortable because it is a feeling. It is not something that we can force and rush the process of. And that can be very frustrating. I know it can be frustrating for me as well, because we all have our daily routine and we all have responsibilities. So when we're feeling discomfort, it's not like the world can just stop for us. But when the discomfort is so obvious to us and we can acknowledge that we don't want to experience this for a long period of time, we have to create space to truly just sit with ourselves. Physically sit down in a quiet space, close your eyes, and sit with the discomfort. Admit it to yourself that you're uncomfortable with this area of your life, and make a commitment to not rush yourself out of the discomfort, and watch how your body will relax. Because for many of us, our whole life, whenever we feel discomfort, it's almost as if we've convinced ourselves that we're not safe or that something bad is going to happen to us. But the truth is, we only feel that way because we tend to abandon ourselves during those uncomfortable moments in our life. By sitting with ourselves and showing our body that we're not avoiding ourselves just because we don't like how we're feeling, it will create real healing within us. And it will become more clear to us what needs to be resolved in order for this discomfort to clear up. But we cannot get to that point where our body and our mind feel safe enough to guide us in the right direction if we don't take time to sit with ourselves. Step 3. Avoiding discomfort creates more of it. I touched on this in step 2, but we're going to get into it a little bit more. As I mentioned, there is no such thing as escaping discomfort. There is no such thing as escaping any emotion we feel at all. All we're doing is postponing it, specifically for the more difficult emotions: sadness, anger, frustration, discomfort. When we postpone those emotions and we don't allow ourselves to fully acknowledge it and process it and sit with it, it will become a lot more painful to sit with it and process it in the future. Does that make it impossible? Absolutely not. Many times when we really start going within and self-reflecting, we will realize that there were many times in our life when we felt sad and we felt angry and we felt misunderstood and we felt all these things, and we didn't sit with ourselves and we just convinced ourselves that we were fine, only to reflect back on it and realize, wow, that really hurt, or wow, I went through a lot and I didn't realize it. This is all normal, and we can still heal way past the moment of our initial experience. It is just more painful, and it's not a physical pain necessarily. It's just an emotional pain. So something that would make you feel sad for a few hours might make you feel sad for a few days or a few weeks, so to speak. But eventually, you will get through it. It's just a matter of asking yourself, how long do you want to feel this discomfort? Do you want to feel uncomfortable for a few hours or a few days and a few months? Anything that we do not heal within ourselves will keep showing up louder, deeper, and it will be more disruptive in our life the longer that we go on neglecting these parts of ourselves. And again, it's not to punish us. It's not because life is unfair. It is because we cannot keep moving forward if we don't even acknowledge our past. Many times we have these goals and these hopes and dreams for our future, and we know our potential, and we know that we can have many amazing things happen to us in life. But we cannot truly get to that point without fully accepting ourselves. And that's beyond the things that are easy to accept. So when we avoid discomfort, we're delaying those amazing opportunities in our life as well. Many times, according to Kabbalah at least, when we're experiencing a lot of discomfort, it's a sign that we've asked for something from God, from the universe. We're trying to manifest something into our lives, but we must clear this out. We need to clear out the baggage to allow space for new blessings and new gifts to come into our life. And so it's almost like a trade-off. And the more often that we face the discomfort and the more often we clear out this baggage in our life, the more often blessings and opportunities and manifestations can come in. We have to be very careful that we're not becoming avoidant of ourselves, because it creates suffering. And it's not necessarily a physical suffering. Your body might not physically be suffering, but it's a mental suffering. You're unhappy. You're unfulfilled. You don't feel fully excited to wake up and live your life every single day. It's important that we reflect and we check ourselves on when we're trying to distract ourselves, control our emotions, and when we use denial to cope with discomfort. These patterns turn into self-sabotage because we're betraying our own growth. Something that I like to remind myself when I catch myself avoiding discomfort or using distraction and using denial, I remind myself that every moment of discomfort that I'm feeling is really a divine intervention. And what that means is it is not a coincidence. It is intentional that I am uncomfortable because I am asking for something that in order for me to receive it, I must evolve into a wiser version of myself. I need to clear out what is no longer needed in my life so that I can accept everything that I truly desire and everything that I truly want. And when I get to that mindset where I'm able to remind myself of the gift and the discomfort, that is when things really start to change. And I start to notice that tension from the discomfort starts to dissipate and it starts to lessen. Step 4, discomfort ends when it becomes gratitude. I love gratitude, and it's because there was a point in my life when the word gratitude would almost trigger me. And not trigger me as if I was feeling threatened or unsafe, which is how people use it nowadays, but triggered in the way where I just had the biggest eye roll when I saw the word gratitude, or when people would always say, be grateful for your life and be grateful for what you have. And it's not because I wasn't grateful, but it's because it felt like people were acting as if there aren't challenges in life and that it isn't hard to focus on the good when there are so many things that distract us from the good and make life feel very challenging and hard. There was a time in my college journey where I had to do a clinical rotation, and that meant I had to work 12 weeks for free. And we didn't really get to choose where we worked. We can request certain spots, but at the end of the day, the school chose where we worked. And sometimes you got lucky and you got a really relaxed, laid back environment that was focused more on learning and working at a student's pace. And other times it was more of a challenge where you were thrown into things right away and you were almost treated like an employee, and you would learn almost the hard way through experience, through trial and error over and over again. So when I went through that experience, I went through a more challenging clinical rotation where I didn't really have the opportunity to feel confident in what I was doing. I was experiencing the discomfort and I didn't have a choice. I had to just do it anyways. I was working long hours. I did not feel confident in what I was doing because I never worked in a clinical setting at that point, and I had no choice but to accept that this is my reality for the next 12 weeks. Now, at the time, I wasn't alone. There were other students that were going through the same experience as me. So it felt better knowing that my feelings were valid because they were feeling similar feelings as well throughout the experience. But what I started to notice was the mindset that you have and the mentality that you have walking into difficult situations really determines your experience. And so if there were days when all we would focus on was the things that was hard about our clinical experience, then it would just be a hard day. And anytime we would focus on the benefits of it and things that were easier for us or the things that we learned and how we built our confidence, it would just be a better day. And overall, the experience wasn't incredible, but looking back on it, I really grew so much as a person. I also remember that some days were so hard to look forward to because you really never knew what you were going to expect and you never really knew what kind of day it was going to be like. I decided to write down 5 things I was grateful for every morning before starting this job. And in the beginning, it was really hard because my mind was really keeping track of all the things that I did not like about this job, but I really forced my mind to shift its perspective. I had to tell myself, I can find 5 things that I'm grateful for, no matter what. And I did. It honestly changed my mindset and my mentality so quickly that I never went back. I have been writing down a gratitude list every single day, preferably in the morning, for the past 2 years. And that's remarkable for me personally. And I recommend it to all my friends, my family, everyone. That doesn't mean that it's easy to implement, but it really does change your mindset and it changes your outlook on life, which will definitely make you a lot happier. And this is a happiness that cannot be bought. This is not a happiness that can be replaced with anything outside of ourselves. This is truly something that comes from within. So if you are someone that is struggling with discomfort in your life, we all do, find 5 things to be grateful for within that discomfort. What is it teaching you? That's something to be grateful for. What is it asking you to change? That's something to be grateful for. What is it causing you to do that you wouldn't have done had you not felt this discomfort? That's another thing to be grateful for, and so on and so forth. By doing this and by forcing your mind to think of things in a positive way rather than a negative way, it's going to end up becoming very effortless for you to see the good in every situation in life. We never want to look at our circumstances and our life experiences as if we are so unlucky to have gone through them, because then we missed the point and we didn't make the most out of our life. The only way to really make the most out of our life and to prevent ourselves from repeating the same stressful, uncomfortable situations is by being grateful for them, for seeking the lesson within them and appreciating who you became through those experiences. Take a moment to really look back on your life and think about the last time you were truly uncomfortable. And I mean uncomfortable to the point where you had no choice but to change something about yourself, about your life. In the beginning, it was definitely hard. There was resistance. You probably didn't want to change. It probably almost felt painful to change, but eventually you did. And now looking back, you're a whole different person. And you're grateful that you went through that experience. If that doesn't seem to apply to you, I really advise for you to journal and self-reflect, because you could be missing out on amazing life lessons that you have had the opportunity to learn. It's never too late to sit and reflect on your past and come to terms with what it is the discomfort in your life has been teaching you. Plus, I think it will be a great starting point for you to adopt a new mindset and really appreciate what it is life is trying to offer you at all times, through the easy going moments in our life and also through the challenging moments in our life, because it's truly all good. Sometimes it feels obviously good, other times it doesn't. But eventually, we realize that it was all for our greatest good. I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode as much as I enjoyed making it. Discomfort was never something that I thought could be my friend or something that I could truly appreciate in my life, but now I do. And if I can get to this point in my life, so can you. If you like this episode, please share it with your friends, family, anyone that you think would benefit from it. And please rate this podcast if you would like to hear more episodes. I love you all. Have a great week. Until next time, bye for now.